call the meeting to order. No real mayor's comments. You'll probably talk about the meeting we had this afternoon. So let's go right into the item number 4, which is the change order number 1 for Group B, pool renovation project.
Yeah, so this is, yeah, I guess this change number 1 for Group B. They have a different way of numbering things, I guess, but it's the second change order we've done. This is in relation to the pool project, the renovation project. So this was something that we hinted at it here a couple months ago when we were talking about some of the pool progress changes, but JEO presented that here for us tonight. And it's for an actual reduction in the project cost of $42,050. And the main gist of that is that initially the plan, they had 4 filters planned for various reasons. I think currently we have 5. Let me say, Tyler. Hey, Tyler, let's come on up here. Feel free to join. So we had 5, so the plan was to go to 4, and then with Carico being the filter company, the general contractor that's working with us, they actually proposed that you could go to 2 filters, save money and more efficient. You want to talk a little bit about what that change means?
Yeah, so essentially what it's gonna be is the filters are gonna be bigger than 2 to 4, they're gonna be bigger, so with them being bigger, there's gonna be more of the sand, the glass stuff in there, so they get filtered out better, so it'll be cleaner water running through since you have bigger filters. In the long run, we're gonna be saving money too, because anytime we had to change the valves or anything inside, you gotta change every 5 to 10 years, depending on your water quality you're running through, but there's gonna be less valves, because the same number of valves are in the 2 big ones there's the same amount of valves in them, even if they're big or small, there's the same number of valves no matter what. So we're gonna have half the valves 2 compared to 4. So in the long term, we're gonna save money that way, and it'll be nice only having 2 sand filters, the backwash through and everything else. So it's gonna be extremely nice having 2 and save money at the same time.
I noticed in my AIS report I put together, I didn't fill in what the amount was that we changed on that first change order. So I did write that in. It was $12,126 if anybody's keeping score. But that was the increase that we saw back in, I think it was November, we did that change order. So now this one's a $42,000 deduction, so additional $30,000 available for the project then. Going forward.
Any questions for Steve or Tyler?
So by going to this new filter method, is there anything that we can, when the folks come in and do that work, is there anything that we can save off that we could use as parts or anything, or these are all different
Yeah, they're gonna be different. So,
valves and everything else?
yeah, so they'll be tying into our system with our pipes and all that, but from the old sand filters, no, these ones are different, yeah. And those sand filters are the original shells and everything else from when it was put in 1991. And I think another reason why we wanted to get new sand filters to begin with, going from 5 to 4, is because they don't make parts for our old sand filters. So if one would have went out anyways, we would have had to get all new.
They're harder to get, all right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions? You did a good job saving us money tonight. Way to go.
Thanks.
We're gonna spend it on Master Parks.
There we go.
Small portion there.
All right. Next up is technical assistance with EPA for lead service line inventory. Corey's gonna move up.
Well, I'll start you off here. I mean, so, yeah, so this is actually kind of a pretty neat thing in that, Corey reached out and, talked to the EPA about, how, moving forward on the lead service line replacement program, right? We're under a mandate that in the next 10 years, that those lead service lines need to be replaced. And so getting that process done, we're actually, I think, one of the first communities in Iowa, maybe to reach out to the EPA to be part of this partnership. So, I mean, I'll let you talk about it.
Yeah, so, thanks. So in the AAS, I kind of laid out the requirements for the lead and copper rule improvements. The action levels changing, sampling requirements, lead service line replacement. So any lead service lines need to be replaced. Any galvanized that were or assumed ever were downstream of a lead line will need to be replaced. Those are the GRRs. And then complete inventory needs to be done. Public notification, outreach, testing at schools and child daycare facilities, so in-home or like TLC, anything like that, will need to be tested in the next 5 years, so. A big ask, I guess, for me to take on by myself, so reached out for technical assistance to the EPA, and they have this Get the Lead Out initiative. It's free for 200 underserved communities. We'd be the first in Iowa and farthest one west. But we did do an initial hour meeting a few weeks ago, and they reached out and said, council's approval and everything, they'd like to move forward, so. So like I said, they help us kind of finish up our inventory, about 2/3 done. Help us develop a replacement plan, access to funding, and then public notification and outreach. I mean, they said they'd come to party in the parks and fair and set up a booth and answer questions, stuff like that, so. So I did reach out to the water superintendent in Warren, Ohio. They've been working with them for about a year now, and they've been really happy with the work with the EPA, so they've been very helpful. I mean, obviously have a lot more tools and we're not reinventing the wheel, so.
They're also the ones that are kind of setting up the rules, so.
Yeah,
You got a rule maker.
yeah, like I said, work with them, so.
Yeah.
A good entity to have in your team.
Yes.
I'm really pleased that you reached out to them. I was not aware this was available, and I think this would be a great opportunity for us.
Yes.
I would like to get rid of these lead lines because it's kind of a quiet deter or hurts people quietly. So it'd be great to be on the front edge.
I totally agree.
So we're about 2/3 done.
Yeah, so we've just been taking inventory as we change the water meters out, so it's kind of a slow process. I mean, money to get the meters, time to get guys in and stuff, so. Yeah, they said, I mean, they might send someone to Charles City to go out with one of the guys and knock on doors and see if we can just get in.
How many, what's our percent that's showing up so far?
Yeah, so right now, I think I did put it in there, Keith, but,
Sorry,
no, you're good. So right now we have 5 confirmed lead, about 600 galvanized required replacement, about 1,100 unknown, and then 1,600 non-lead. So that's copper and plastic.
So what, 3,500 households?
Yeah.
In town roughly, so. We're close to almost half of those that are in good shape anyway.
Yeah.
So that's to me a good sign.
I'm just surprised, like I said, Ruby only.
And this wasn't really something, I kind of just stumbled on this and doing some reading,
Yeah.
so I don't know if it's really.
It's amazing that, especially after
Pays to
everything
be a
that
reader.
happened in Michigan, that people wouldn't be more aware
Mhm.
of, what's going on with the lead pipes and everything.
Yeah, so as far as the requirements, reporting and everything, but yeah, it's the technical assistance, I don't know that a lot of people, communities know it's out there, so.
If we're having to replace downstream galvanized, are we having to replace meters in that process again?
So, I guess as of right now, I guess we're kind of in a spot where the service line is considered the customers, I mean, the way our code reads, so. So I guess that's where the funding kind of comes in is, I mean, how do we pay for it, or how do I tell a resident, you have a $12,000 bill to replace a water line? So that, I guess, to define the funding is kind of the first thing, but when they do replace it, we are changing the meter, getting our inventory updated then.
Even if we replaced it sooner? Even if we replace the meter recently, we're still going to,
we have to replace the service line.
yes, if we
That's
do the
correct.
service line. Will we have to do the meter even if it's a current meter?
No,
Thank
okay,
you,
sorry.
because that would add some
Yeah,
stress.
yep, I get you.
Yeah,
Yep, no, the meter would be good.
what caught my eye was the state revolving fund, so in the scenarios that you've given us, though, it's galvanized or it's fled and it needs to be replaced, then that revolving fund helps the homeowner offset that cost.
It would probably help the city.
Yeah.
Offset that cost.
Okay, so we would do it, and then we would have to do the service line?
Potentially, those are all the
That's-
details
yeah,
we're trying to
okay.
figure out what that means. and,
Okay.
You know, different cities are, I mean, everybody's kind of taking a step-by-step approach with this. I mean. Des Moines.
Yeah, Des Moines, yeah.
Des Moines is a, you know, they're similar to us, where it's like, that's not city, that's the homeowner's property technically, anything outside the name, so how can the city force them to replace that, because it's their property, you know, that's, you know, do you have the legal standing to force replacement? So. We all know this is coming from the federal level, so at some point, somebody's gonna make a decision on what has to be replaced and who does it. But I know when this first was talked about last, you know, few years, you know, say, well, the thought would be that there's hopefully. Federal funding comes out to help cities and communities do this. But yeah, long and short, but if it's a state revolving loan fund, I don't think they do loans directly to homeowners. That would be us taking on that cost. And maybe we assess the cost to the property owner, give them 10 years to pay, you know, I don't know. Something like that, or that would be a pretty monumental cost for us to try and take on the fund out of our own reserve, you know, funds to do those replacements, so.
That's gonna get to be a pretty involved process, too, you know, and those are buried under basement floors.
Yeah.
Every
Your streets.
Yeah, but I mean, just the service line coming in from the curb stop. And it goes under your footings of your house, your basement floors and everything else, that's not a small item.
No, and you're right, it's a really big ask to try to be a citizen and say, you know, your pipe functions, but you can't have it anymore. You cough up the money, like that's real tough.
Maybe it could be like, okay, so, you know, in the future, you have this revolving fund, there are funds there. Then. If I'm a homeowner and I have a lead service line, need to get rid of it. Then is it a match or something along those lines, or? I don't know.
Well, it opens the whole Pandora's box of things,
Yeah.
because what happens down the road from this? And anybody else that just has a service line that goes bad.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, geez, there was this program a while back for the lead ones, why?
Right,
So I mean, I could get interesting down the road.
So do we need to invent water supply line and flow lighting?
There you go.
Small.
Yeah, it would.
I know, but still.
Well,
but we should expect some more information on the future regarding this and.
And that's why, I mean, I like, obviously working with the EPA, like, I mean, get it straight from them instead of, you know, trying to read the 500-page requirements and everything like that, so. And I was just gonna say, we typically do, when we do a water main replacement project, we do from the main to the curb stop has been replaced with copper. I mean, we don't have, I mean, I know since I've been here, but we don't have great records before I was here, but.
I have a quick question. It's mostly curiosity because our numbers are still really well below the action level. Do you have any idea why, like when you look at 2016, it's that 2.0 and 2022, it's just ticked up a little bit, those lead levels, like I'm not concerned about the lead levels. I want to make that real clear, but I'm just my science teacher curiosity. Any idea why?
Yeah, so. When I started the sample sites, so we sample 20 locations every 3 years. When I started, the sample sites were. Say Phillips House, Patrick's House, Keith's House, because we knew. They knew they would get the sample bottles back.
Right,
right? So as we started doing the meter change outs, you know, we found lead lines and galvanized lines. So we updated the sample sites.
okay,
So it was more, you know, we weren't just going by convenience, it was more. You know, I mean, I would expect higher numbers
right, it's probably more reflective of the larger community, all right,
of the galvanized and lead instead of just, right, copper line and.
all right, thank you.
It is nice to see though, I mean, they talks how they lowered that action level to 15 micrograms. Right, so that's already been lowered and we're averaging 4.2, so it's quite a bit under that.
And then I will say too, that we've always just historically sampled the first liter, so after it sits for 6 hours or longer, that's the sample the kids are gonna drink, you know, to get middle of night. So the fifth liter is gonna give us I mean, we potentially could see higher numbers there too. That's gonna be representative of what's in the service line coming in. Like I said the highest one was actually the 7th liter, but.
Yeah.
But we do,
Do you think erosion has anything to do with it?
so.
Yeah, that's what I was
So we
thinking.
do,
Erosion.
our lime softening and then we add phosphate. I mean, so we do adjust the pH, so we're not leaching in any chemicals. I mean, we test every day. So we're always slightly depositing, so we're not, you know, like in Flint, Michigan, they didn't adjust their pH and they leached in all the lead off the pipes. I mean, that's why, that was their major issue.
Okay. And the protective coating went away.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we're always just slightly depositing it, and we monitor pH and add phosphate to prevent that.
Other questions? Good information, Corey.
Thank you.
So just for our next, you're looking for approval to do this, then?
Yeah, so they did ask for, I mean, just basically yes or no email back, reply, they asked for by Friday. But I told them, I mean, I did email them back, so the meeting was tonight, and have approval or a final decision Monday, so. I mean, I think just, yeah, and everybody's
Wednesday,
on
Paul,
board.
is that gonna be an issue? We aren't meeting till Wednesday next week.
It's safe to say that I think we have consensus to move forward with the free
Yeah.
program with EPA.
Yeah.
So
I
let's
think-
just let them know tomorrow and say if we're good to go.
But we still want this on the agenda.
I don't know.
Formal
we need
action,
on
do
the
you think,
agenda,
or no?
really.
I just put it on the agenda. and take
Yeah,
a
that way
quick
if they need
vote.
something
That way
formal.
Corey's got his, yes.
Okay.
Be my suggestion,
Yeah, sounds fine.
since we can't action tonight.
Thank you. This one was all free too, by the way, so.
Nice.
Good to see you all.
Good to see you too.
The department heads are doing good tonight, bringing in free stuff.
We should have mentioned that,
Yes.
none of us did.
Tyler's getting deductions, or you get
We
free
didn't
stuff.
put the,
Tony, what do you got?
Come on,
Hey,
see you, Cory.
Pressure's on the new guy.
we didn't put these on the agenda the right way, did we?
No,
Traffic lights.
So again, basically the lead into this is, you know, as part of, actually part of our capital improvement planning process last year, we established trying to set aside money each year to do additional traffic control replacements. And this year, the intent was to do, the Four Corners area, if you will, Birmingham, Gilbert, Freeman, and South Grant. But what happened was we had, some lights and some controllers with those on North Main kind of start having some issues and aging out. And so what we're looking to do is shift that use of that $50,000 from that Birmingham project up to North Main to do these 3 intersections. And so you probably noticed there's lights up there that they're either in blink mode or they're just in regular rotation. I don't think we can do much to them, can we?
No, there's really nothing we can do right now. They can't communicate because the underground cables are corroded and broken. So this will be a way for us to get 3 of them, be able to communicate. And replace the one that is not functioning properly up by the theater. Have that one fixed. And then we've talked about for the budget, putting back in this amount for Four Corners again next year, because that is important. But since this one just popped up before we were ready for it, we just figured we ought to do that one first.
And so what you see, so the proposal you see there, there's one from Mobu Trex. that totals about $36,000, but that uses the older technology, which, as I understand,
Yeah,
is
it's the old hardwire and it's the old technology that was actually developed way back in the seventies. And so just pretty old school. And this will get us up to new wireless technology. And one thing that will definitely be a benefit, if you notice at every intersection on the southeast quadrant of the intersection, there's a big control box on the post. They'll each still have a control box, but it's about a fourth the size. So it's gonna be much less obtrusive and less of a headbanger for kids, and it'll just be a lot safer. And looks a lot nicer too, not having been as big, so. And it will be compatible with any lights we wanna do in the future, because they are separate, they can make any light work. So it's not gonna tie us to anything there. The other thing is the company that we're dealing with, which is a majority of our lights already. And they're a company that, Don has been very happy with. And the guy's actually saved us quite a bit of money. If there's anything he can do to help walk Don through programming or anything, if he can do it over the phone, not charging us a dime. So the customer service has been outstanding. We have an issue with the lights out, by IC, and they're supposed to go by traffic coming up, well, the cameras are malfunctioning. And he was able to walk Don through a couple of diagnostics and determine, okay, there is an issue with the camera. Help him get it reset so it is now working in a regular cycle. So if anyone does, make sure we do realize that we're getting that fixed. If not yet this week, early next week, and they're gonna be able to come out and get it fixed. But there again, he was able to do that over the phone, didn't cost us anything. He's just been tremendous to work with. And if we can have all the lights the same company, we can get parts. We just have a couple of them on hand. Inventory is a lot easier. We just got one supplier. So I think it's behooves us to always make sure they're staying competitive, but thus far, everyone knows they gotta stay competitive, so we haven't had too much of an issue. So.
Those lights on Main Street and stuff have been a pain in the backside for a long time. And
There's always something wrong.
we've known this has been coming, and I think this is just the first tip of the iceberg that's. You know, I mean, I just think there's gonna be more problems as time goes on, so
Yeah.
I think it's time we just get a plan in place to.
It was my understanding that the first two lights they've been rebuilt the last time, so I mean, we should have some time on the first two. But I would say that the following year, we probably need to go ahead and get those done at the same time.
because we stole parts from Kelly Street when we took that one out, and stole parts from Court Street when we took that out.
That's my question. So it's kind of, we're replacing the towing, right? So we're getting new ones. Do they take the old stuff out? Do we salvage some of that to?
We can, Don was saying that there was a few of them that were like right on the verge of whether they could be rebuilt for parts for it. And I think that that's why we ended up with the two we got, because they were the last ones that were repairable. The odds of those being repairable again are pretty small. And he said most even the parts we got out there, there's nothing left at this juncture. Now, if there's anything out of the ones we get now, yeah, we'll take those for the first two just in case.
Just to maybe,
Yeah,
keep us hanging on.
for as long as we possibly can. Because I think he said that there's the ones that were put in, they were 2001. And they were too old, but there was a couple that were put in 2003 and they were like the last one you could still get parts for. And that's why they're there. So we just barely got by on those, but that's probably the last time.
But this stuff is manufactured in the 70s, so it's.
Yeah.
We got our money out.
Got your money out of it, that's for sure. Yeah.
You say you did something with the light by IC. Did you do something with the light by Casey's also recently?
Yes, both of
That
those.
timing has changed.
They're both the
Yes.
same, and they're.
It's much better for me, because that used to be that cross street, it was almost a minute, now it's like 13 seconds or something.
Well, that was part of the diagnostic they did.
Well, I was, because I was like, well, this light is just way faster, so I thought, maybe it's just a fluke, but it's like 13 seconds the last couple of times, like, yeah, this is great.
Then they went through it, and he was doing it online, he was actually going through because it went back to factory default is what happened.
Okay,
And he says, oh, full minute, yeah, people are probably getting pretty angry.
see, I was right, a full minute.
Yeah.
Does it have a camera on it for the left turn people or not, on that one?
I'm not sure exactly how they
I believe it does.
reset it.
Being that
Yeah,
We had some
Yeah.
issues with that early on. It was almost like the sensors needed sunglasses, if you will.
yeah,
There's a certain time of year where the sun comes on the angle,
Yeah,
almost like this time of year when you're coming down to Gilbert Street at about 7 o'clock in the morning, the sun is right behind the light.
yeah.
You have to look at the other two to see if they're red
Yeah.
to know that you're green.
yeah, well. Trudy and I appreciate the change.
And the guys were quick to tell me too, there's a special material you have to use for cleaning the camera. Because they're very, very sensitive to
Yeah.
any scratches or anything will mess with that, so they're very careful about getting up there to do that, so.
All right, any other traffic signal questions?
So we'll have this on the agenda for money for the general traffic control quote for 50,655. That's basically what it comes out to. Alright. Equipment, GPS sync, and then some electrical work.
And we did call and confirm the price that they're still good with that.
Okay. We did.
All right, thanks, Tony.
Good job breaking this too for the first time.
Yeah.
It cost us money, but we're gonna be more efficient, right?
They don't usually show up with something to give you.
Technically budgeted for.
Yeah.
All right, next up is the designate ADA and Title VI coordinators. What is that?
This is just, yeah, well, yeah, you wanna take it, Steve? I guess it
Sure,
doesn't
yeah,
matter,
this is something we always have to do. So, and this is through I think are they both through the DOT?
I think those are the entities that we've worked with that have
Yes.
required this to have somebody named, so.
We don't have a,
It's named, Brian is named, so we just need to rename it.
no, I mean, we don't have a worksheet or anything to look at.
Yeah, the link
There's no
doesn't
link,
work.
yeah, the link doesn't work. No, sir.
Well, it was really basic, I mean, it's very, very basic, all of this is just, they don't name it by position, which is unfortunate, because it'd be nice just to say city engineer, but you have to name a person. So we had Brian in there, and since Brian isn't here any longer, John volunteered to step in and be named until he gets replaced. So it's basically just changing it from Brian to John,
Gotcha.
so. Which is, it's too bad they can't just put a position in there, but oh well. Yeah, sorry about that, I don't know what happened there, why that link isn't on there.
Yeah, there's a link there, but it just loops you right back to the.
Send you back to the agenda again.
We didn't do that all that long ago, did we?
I was gonna
Best
say,
I
it
can
seems really-
remember.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it was like a year and a half, maybe.
Not in.
No,
If it's Brian, we didn't do it
Yeah,
very long ago.
yeah, because he's only with us a couple of years, but, anyway, so it's just a formality, basically, is what it is. So,
Okay.
All right. Steve, capital improvement plan discussion.
Yeah, so there's no capital improvement plan discussion. So, I guess what we can talk about is, so I mean, I guess I'll tell you what I'm doing with that is, you know, so I've got the sheets from the department heads. You know, now we have our goal setting. Priorities back, so that's a piece that helps, but so I'm going through and updating the 5-year plan. You know, what is this year, things that didn't get done this year, putting them in the next year. And then kind of putting some notes in there to say, okay, this is carrying over from the previous year, this is how this has changed. And then with the additional ones that I've received from the department heads, I'm gonna try and plug those in to what makes sense according to what our planning has told us, and from a funding standpoint, they'll be labeled as new or what have you, and then then when we review that, then you'll have some time to say, well, we want that sooner, we want that later, type of a thing, but just not at that point to have that information processed and ready to hand out to you, so. I'd like to think I would have that sheet finalized here before the week's over. And get it out to you so you can be looking through it, and so then maybe it's just a matter of taking, 10-15 minutes next Wednesday or after during our council meeting to kind of talk through some of that stuff. But the nice thing is we did most of the heavy lifting last year, right? We got a 5-year plan put in place, and now it's just a matter of updating and modifying it, so work in progress. But to that end, so I gave everybody, I emailed you and I gave you a hard copy of the report back from the goal setting. went through it last night and we had a couple, corrections that I saw that I had from my notes, and there's a couple typos type of thing, but, yeah. Please go through and take a look at that and see if there's something in there that's either should be there that isn't, or vice versa. I know Delane mentioned, there's a number of things in there that we should either completed or removed, and they're still in there, they're just struck out. So, I think to some degree, there's some benefit to have it there, to know that you removed it or that's complete. But if we wanna take that out to clean it up, so it's not even in there anymore.
I guess I thought
That's
that's what
what
she
you
was
do.
gonna do for us. I thought it was gonna be gone, so we wouldn't have so much stuff.
Yeah, I think I would say it should be removed too, because we also don't need somebody next time we do it, go, that's a good idea to put back in. That's like, if we're trying to, you know what I mean? Yeah, I think if we feel like it's struck out, then it probably doesn't. We don't need to see it on the list.
Would there be a thought though, to, if you're going to remove it, have another section of a look back at what we have completed, marked completed, the last 5 or 10 years from the historical perspective, so.
Yeah, it could be moved, could it be moved into section 5, review of progress being made? Is that where that's?
I can see the advantage of still having it somewhere, either under stuff that's been completed or stuff that is, we moved to ongoing.
Still have this report to reference back to. I mean, this is technically the report she's provided to us, so you'd still have that. I don't really care. It's just, you start looking at that and it's there's a lot of, okay, well, no, that one's removed, and okay, well, that's crossed through. This is completed, but it's still on there. And so it's more confusing to me to have all that junk there.
I get that.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we removed it, we could have a section of what have we completed in the last, 2 years, like, or since the last goal setting. So that way we do have that sort of reference within what we're focused on is cleaner.
And we talked about, we're gonna have a sheet like we've had other years. These are our goals. These are other things that we talked about. I know, last packet, here's your top 5 goals. Here's the next 7 things that you talked about. So that and we have to decide how many goals we want. I know we talked about that at the group session. We don't want 15 goals. So we have to decide, how many of our old goals are we gonna continue? How many of the new goals we're gonna add on, and when do we make those decisions? I guess is my question. Is that at this 15-minute meeting that you're talking about, that we define our number of goals before we define our capital improvement plan? Because hopefully the goals lead to the capital improvement. Otherwise.
I guess my one question on that would be, do any of those hinge on the outcome of the EPA grant? So do we want to wait until we find out about the EPA grant, or?
I would say we put our goals in with the EPA grant, either yay, accomplished one of our goals, or hey, here's one of our goals we didn't talk about, we're gonna get that done too.
I guess.
I
So
think we
it
still need,
needs to
I guess I
go.
think we still need to define our goals.
Right. Okay.
Because our goals, there's a lot of things on that EPA plan that will not be in our goals if we don't get the EPA plan. Yeah, like lighting the trail. I mean, that'd be nice, but that's not gonna be in our next 2-year goal. But if we get that plan, that'll be great to get that done, but that's just my opinion.
I agree.
I think we should set our goals, and then the EPA plan will just be, hey, it helped our goals, or we got something else accomplished.
Well, yeah, looking at what we voted on anyway, the top 5 topics, none of them would have anything to do with that grant as well anyway. But I'm looking at it now, hiring a grant writer, and the vote that we took at the end, none of those
Yeah, you're
goals,
right.
would involve the EPA grant anyway, so.
Do I have one of those copies or?
Yeah, I thought there was one laying there.
There's some right here.
There, but. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that, was that yours?
No, mine was up here.
Oh.
Let's get it online, but. So we have your suggestions that you suggested back to her are gonna be like minor things, Steve? Things that you said, you need to correct this, were they typos or minor things, or
Yeah, well,
gonna substantially change anything?
No, it was like, it was real show. Implement a tax abatement program. It was like remains, and like, well, no, that was completed, we got that done. There's a typo on one, and then I forget what the other one was, but there was nothing substantive.
Yeah. So is this then her final report? And then
It is, and then from that is when I make that list out,
yeah,
as far as what the new goals are.
yeah,
And what the ongoing points would be, so based on, I mean, we still, left 13 ongoing priorities on there, but. So when I would put this together, I would put that on that goals sheet, that we've got 15. Ongoing priorities. That's on page 23.
I can figure out. I can figure out.
So I'd put those as the ongoing priorities, and then, with that, what the new ones would be, are those top vote getters we had. 5. Main Street Bridge. Reduce staffing levels, on blight properties. Funding implementation for master park plan. Communication specialists, focus on expanding fiber in the community. Work with chamber on facade improvement grant outside of Main Street. Hire grant writer. So those would be the new priorities I would list, go along with the other ones.
Well, then I go back to what we talked about the other night. We don't want 10 priorities.
Yeah,
So
no,
how do we get that list of what you just said down to our top 3?
yeah, if you look at the ongoing priorities, a lot of those could probably,
Yeah.
they could be condensed down into, some of them are kind of duplicate and some of them can be eliminated, I believe.
Well,
Yeah, they don't need to be.
and ongoing priorities, I think are okay to have.
Yeah,
They're not goals though for the next 2 years.
Exactly.
They're things that we still want to keep on our radar,
Yeah.
but they're not a big goal, but I do think we need to get it winnowed down to 3 to 5
goals, yeah.
Well, even some of these are not really priorities.
Mhm.
They're ideas to keep in front
Right.
of us, but they're not priorities.
Yeah, the language is,
Yeah, for me, anyway.
I'd agree with that.
And for the goals, if we say we're gonna do 5 goals, then we have to say, how are we going to determine that that goal's been met, right?
And then, like I said, number 13 on ongoing priorities is actually, you can really say that's a goal, that's one of the
It's one of the
new,
goals that
that's
we
one of the
talked
new
about.
goals. Yeah, it's true. So,
But I still say, we voted for she listed the top 5 up here. And there's like at least 2 that we haven't accomplished from the last time, so now we're at 7. Do we
Yeah.
still want to have 7 goals, I guess is my question, or do we want to have 3 goals?
but was it like the 5th one was like, some of them were tied, I think, so.
Yeah,
it's probably gonna be different
There are
size.
3 top ones, and then
Yeah.
the next ones are tied, I think.
But your goal is the damming priority. It's a dam goal.
The dam was not even talked about.
Yeah,
it was
For
the
the bridge, I'm
bridge,
sorry.
Bridge
Yeah.
on the
Yes.
price on the goal, yeah.
yeah, it
But
was
again-
our top vote.
I think we should decide, I think the bridge is a unique and interesting thing to have as a goal. Because it's hard to define what your expectations are. It's also something that I don't think is going to take very much work that we can do on a consistent basis, like we could, if you were doing nuisance properties, you could say we need 4 nuisance properties in the process all the time, or 6. And that's something we could hold Brad accountable to. If we pick a number of nuisance properties, if we want to be constantly moving through that process, because it's a couple of years. But the bridge is kind of a different animal. I have a hard time understanding it as a goal. Because again, it's we're already working toward it, and maybe that's all it takes is what we're doing.
I don't know that we're working towards it, we just did a study to see whether or not we
Yeah.
can, what's.
I guess I think the goal
to-
is,
Yeah,
what is our
decide.
plan, what's the
yeah,
plan?
to decide whether or not to rehab it or to replace it,
Yeah.
yeah, so.
We've started to work towards that goal,
Work
but
towards,
we've got a,
yeah,
we got a lot of work to
we
do.
gotta decide too, we haven't decided really which way to go.
Right, which we can't do until we get
Until we get
the
that.
information from
Yeah.
review.
And really, a large part of the problem here with this particular one is what applies to so many of these. When you read how it's written, and I think this is why we have to be careful about how we propose things, it says replace or
Yeah.
rehabilitate. The goal is actually to make a decision and determine a plan for how to care for that bridge
Yeah.
going forward, right? So like, and I think that we have to be very clear with how we write it, so there isn't confusion, like, what is the replace or rehabilitate, like if we, like, how does that become a goal? And if we say, we are going to research and make a decision, then everything that we do along that way, we can say, oh, well, we have a study that's coming up. Check that box. Here are the results of that study. Check that box. You know, so that provides, it's maybe not ever something that's gonna be a real smart and measurable goal in the same way that for nuisance abatements a year would be, but it's, I just think that wording really matters and how you perceive what it is you're doing and how you're moving forward through that process. And that's like, we talked about that at the goal setting, that we have a lot of things that are cumbersome in their wording, and it's really multiple goals. And so I think that that's sort of the same thing here. It's not that it's multiple goals, it's just, there's a lack of clarity in what it is that we want.
I agree 100%.
Yeah, I like what you just said. I think really having an action plan under it to define what it is. To define the steps somewhere in there is really important and move it to the next level. Otherwise, it'll just be there for a long time.
Clear and concise, I like that.
Why don't we just say address the future of the Main Street Bridge? Something like that, that way, because we don't know exactly, at this point, we need to set a goal, but we don't know. Until we get that study information back, we don't know which direction we want to go. We don't have all the information.
It's just like the blighted properties, you know, not to change subject, but blighted properties are gonna be here till, you know,
Forever.
ships, you know, long gone.
Yeah,
So the goal,
we can just say.
that's an ongoing issue that we gotta deal with.
But that is identifiable, because we could say,
Uh-huh.
this year, we're, instead of spending, just the wrong number, instead of spending $50,000 on nuisance, this year we're gonna spend $75,000, so that's the goal. Is that you're gonna up the ante on what you're gonna
Oh,
do.
yeah.
Yeah, you're not gonna eliminate all the nuisance properties in 2 years, but you could step it up the rate of
Yeah.
nuisance properties, so there is a goal there.
Yeah, just like I said, it's all in the wording, it sounds like to me,
Yeah,
just how we
right.
word it. We could just say to continue to aggressively address blighted nuisance properties, you know.
But if you
So
say
I
that, if you say there, then there's no measurable goal.
Mhm.
I think if we're gonna have, if you wanna have quantifiable goals. We look at what we spent for nuisance this year. We say, we would need to step that up. So if it was $50,000, next year needs to be $75,000.
To me, that's more of a budgeting issue
It's a goal.
than a goal.
If how,
So we just get into it.
everybody's talking about measurable. I'm
Right.
trying to find a way you can measure that. How else do you
You can measure
quantify
that a
it?
lot easier with the money than you can trying to say we're gonna do 5 this year, because each one is different.
Timing.
That's
And
what I-
time
that's what I
frames
said,
and everything
not-
else are gonna be.
Yeah.
So
That's
I
what I
guess
all
said.
over the place.
back to the mayor's original question, and I think what it sounds like is we need to actually like put our creation of our list of goals on a different planning session and plan to like
Right.
come in and determine like what are those goals and then how do they need to be worded
Yeah.
so that they're clear
Yes.
and concise.
I like that.
So that
Let's-
probably
and
needs
let's
to
number
just
1,
be,
2, 3, 4, down to number 10 and say, here's our goals, here's the other things we're gonna work on, but they aren't our major, number
Yeah.
10 might. If we get to number 10, great, but we're not gonna focus on 10, we're gonna focus on 1, 2, 3, and 4.
right, I think we need like priority goals and then like secondary
Yeah.
goals. But I think that it probably should be on a plan, based just on this, probably
Yes.
on a planning session that the rest of the agenda is slim,
Yes,
okay?
Yeah.
Looking at
For
you.
4 hours,
Yeah.
right? No.
Um,
No, but the outcome of that, and you're absolutely right, is we come out of there with, here are our goals, but also we have we have gone through the wording of those goals and we all agree or find some middle ground, say this is something we can, look at and measure.
And I like that word measure, that's partly my science brain. We have to be really cautious with the word measure. Not everything has a quantifiable metric we can measure it by. So a lot of times when I think people hear measure, they think numbers. Maybe that's just me because I live in that science world where I require students to look at things in numerical and non-numerical ways. And so I think that like, that's gonna be important too, to recognize that some of these goals are gonna have non-quantifiable goals. They will be qualitative, like what is the end result? How does it look? But defining that either way, whether it's qualitative or quantitative, that's the language I use with my students, is gonna be.
I like that. I mean, if we don't do that, then we're gonna have the same conversation 2 years from now, right?
And I also think that we need to do this before we finalize the capital improvement plan too. Cause don't we want to put our money where our mouth is? If this is a goal, and it's not on the capital improvement plan, how's it get accomplished?
But do we also want to be setting goals if we don't know we can financially make it happen? Like if we say this is our top priority and then we go back to the budget, like, ooh, we gotta have a couple years to like get to that.
Exactly.
Then
Well,
it maybe becomes a secondary priority while something else moves up and we're saving up for that. You know what I mean?
But that's still is our
I see it either
capital
way.
improvement plan. You know, we have this goal, we can't accomplish that now, but let's put it in the capital improvement plan to work on for the next 3 years. Otherwise, we'll never have the money to do it.
Yeah.
I just think they work together. You can't have one without the other.
Mhm.
Perfect world, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know if we wait on the capital improvement plan because once we set the goals, we're gonna do some research to actually see what the costs are gonna be.
I think capital improvement plan is a living,
Yeah,
breathing.
exactly. Yeah, we can adjust the capital improvement
Just
plan
like
as we go.
goals are.
Budgets.
Yeah, everything is a moving deal. You know, it's just like number 7 on here. Review staffing levels to work address blighted properties, to review existing ordinances to handle strategic. I thought we agreed that that thing was getting
Was way
changed
too
and
long.
split apart or
Yeah,
something,
yeah.
so that never changed.
Right.
Yeah,
here.
that one's a hard.
I'm sorry,
No, that's
I'm not
right.
trying to get after our director the other night, but it's like, some of that stuff kind of fell through the cracks for me, but.
Yeah, you're right.
She actually she added the communication specialist position in there. She just didn't remove.
That was the
number
one
7.
that, yeah,
She didn't remove that
yeah,
last.
that to handle strategic
Yes.
communication.
Take
duties.
that out. That's.
Yeah. She moved out, she just didn't take it out.
But I think, again, it probably should be noted the next time we do this, a reminder to go out, like, when you are submitting ideas. And after we go through the language the first time, I think we'll have a better idea of how to submit things so that we're breaking them down ahead of time for ourselves, so we aren't having to figure it out. on the
4-hour
fly.
meeting, right?
Yeah. So this will be on another planning session.
Or
at some
next
point.
planning session, we have any idea what's on the next planning session, or could this be? I think the sooner we get to this, the better, the less still fresh.
On that planning session, we have a couple of budget items, TIF and transit, I know. But I don't think we developed that agenda yet for that planning
Yeah,
session.
I
And
don't
I
either.
remember, was that the 28th?
29th, I think.
29th.
Yeah,
It's one of those, yeah.
There's nothing that, I mean, I list of things that I keep that standing out right now.
So maybe on that one, do you want to put this revision of
if it
the
fits.
goal settings?
Yeah, but because I think you're right, Mayor, the sooner the better, while it's still fresh, we're thinking about it.
Okay. That was a good capital improvement plan discussion. All right. The administrator report.
Sure, yes, so today we had our pre-construction meeting on the city hall, police department remodel, and so that got kicked off and running, they kind of gave us an initial timeline, it's still rather nebulous, but I mean, it's off and running and started. One of the first things that they're gonna be doing, allowing is, getting or asbestos abatement guy in there so he can do that, so. You know, I know after the meeting was done, they were already talking, you know, timing and all that type of good stuff for that. I guess the important date to remember is, you know, that Berglund Cram had in there for us is April 30th, 2026 is the date that we have in there for substantial completion. So that's what, 16 months in there. And so, you know, some of the steps we talked through today was, you know, the police department, they already, you know, worked in the basement and put up that wall, you know, and got the evidence behind there, put up a temporary wall, which was kind of part of the project, but that sounds like by today, that saved like 2 or 3 weeks worth of work, right? So that's all done. All the lead down there has been abated. So they're all, contractors are very happy that they can get going and get started on that sooner. So, that was good. Kind of in conjunction with that, I had a phone call, a Teams meeting today with Wind Fiber. They're the ones that provide our internet, and you know, they bought out the Unity Point fiber loop in town when that got put in with the partnership from the city several years ago. Well, part of this project, of course, is, you know, they've got their main co-location or connections come through City Hall. Part of them are on the police side, part of them are over on our side, and to be quite honest with you, there's connections and things in there that are accessible by all of us that shouldn't be, that serve all sorts of entities in town for internet. So, you know, obviously with this remodel that we're doing, we wanted to change that. So, you know, we've given them space that's gonna be in that basement down there. They have a board, you know, we're gonna power it. They asked to be on our backup generation. We're gonna have them on the generator. So, you know, that discussion kind of led one thing to another of, well, you know, okay, we're housing your operations. We're giving you power, we're giving you backup generation. You should probably give us free internet and whatnot, or we should have an agreement that says how this works. You know, because initially we did have an agreement. We had like a 7-8 year agreement. That there's some TIF payments we had as far as when that project went in. That ended, you know, 4 years ago or so, and now we have a usage agreement for internet, but you know, I've told them, you know, with Omnitel coming in, they're serving the City Hall, and said, I wanna support Omnitel because, you know, they're building out in town. And I said, unless you guys wanna build out in town, I'm open ears for that. They turned me down. You know, I guess the discussion was, they provide connection for about 7 different entities in town. 4 of which are the city, 3 of the county. And so we need to determine what the usage levels of those are. So anyway, but I think we're gonna come to an agreement for a co-location agreement that we keep them on as maybe our backup internet. And that we use Omnitel as our primary. This is all when we come back into City Hall. We're gonna get something on paper, I guess is the long and short of it. So it was a good discussion. Bond sale, so we're getting all prepped up for the bond sale, for the City Hall project. Something I talked about, specifically with the finance committee the last couple of days, yesterday, I guess it was, Paul Don suggested that we look at doing, you know, getting a bond insurance policy that would take let me back up. We had our Moody's bond rating. We came back with a Mood rating of A2, which is pretty good, and that's where we have been. So that was not much of a surprise. About a year or so ago, I think it was, they downgraded us from an A1 to an A2. Not just us, a lot of communities. You know, that's it. Doesn't have anything to do with what the legislature's doing. It certainly does. But so we were at A2, so that's fine. I think what Paul is seeing though is there's a lot of potential buyers out there that are interested in AA and higher. And long and the short of it was we get this bond insurance policy for $12,000. It's going to save us $40,000 in issuance costs. So we pulled the trigger on that yesterday. So now we have a Moody's A2 wrapped with a S&P AA rated issuance. So it makes it more marketable, opens it up to a larger group, and we should see a good cost savings on that when we issue bonds on the 22nd. So that's all set up, ready to go. I guess the last thing I have is Trudy and I have been talking to Trudy mainly, she reached out to Dave Bob about building a little cabinet in here where we could keep all of our IT equipment. Because we really can't keep it back in the back corner of the library over there, because it's pretty wide open, so anybody that uses the library has access to it. And we offered to, the library a cabinet of some sort, and so we're actually gonna look at something that we could use here, then potentially move that over to City Hall when that's finished out of place, just to put our owls, because we're gonna have those on tripods, and, you know, laptops and equipments, because right now we're hauling everything in and out every time we have a meeting, and that gets to be a little cumbersome, so. We're gonna,
Sometimes, like I leave my laptop over
Right.
there, so
Exactly
safety.
right.
is-
We're gonna have shelves in there,
Yeah.
whoever wants to leave their
Close
laptop
it.
there, lock it up.
Charging station in there.
Yeah.
talked about
Yeah,
that too.
we talked about that too.
So, otherwise, I guess that's all I have.
Anybody else have any board, commission, or committee issues to share?
Pool. Parks and Rec met tonight, we already talked about the pool change order. They're looking, or going to explore once again the idea of hiring someone for a master park plan, so Tyler's gonna send out some more information and some sample plans, so they can really see what they would get, and I think that would be beneficial, because there's quite a list of priorities, much like ours. Very long, so that was, I think, probably the big thing tonight that they discussed.
Anybody else?
Airport Authority met today, and, one of the big things going on out there is they're looking at putting up this 10-place T hangar, they call it. And I've got a little map here if you want to look at it after, and show you where it's gonna be. Out there, it's about $1.7 million, $1.8 million project, and they've got a bunch of grants that they're potentially in line for. If this thing moves forward, most of those are 85% to 90% grants, but they still have to come up with somewhere around 15% of the money, and they've been talking to an entity about borrowing that amount, which is what they've done in the past, so. Anyway, gonna be a neat deal if it all gets put together.
So there be any income from that once it's built, as far as renting hangar space there?
Right. And they've got another individual out there that's looking at putting up their own hangar out there besides.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else? Seeing none, we will adjourn our meeting. Well.
Are you going somewhere warm, I hope?